Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, do I have a treat for you. I'm so excited about this episode. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote, special quote, picked just for this episode. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung. Our guest today is a good friend of the Culture Matters podcast. You know them if you've been on this journey with us because they were actually episode 20, season 2 of the Culture Matters podcast. And now we are into the hundreds. If you're listening to this, hundreds and hundreds of episodes. The founder of Board of Advisors, the advisor of advisors, the one and only Mike Calhoun, and a supporter since the very beginning, 30 Days of Thought, but somebody that for his entire life has been helping people, and he gets to do it every single day with the people he loves working with, the members of Board of Advisors. Huge admiration. If you haven't listened to that episode 20, season 2, and or the other times that he's frequented the Culture Matters podcast, take a look at that. But today we're actually recording on New Year's Eve of 2023. If you're watching on YouTube, you see a background that looks like a fake background. It's actually an unbelievable place that Mike is recording from called home. And we're talking about, we're talking about the first or last. That's the first thing I want to learn today. So thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast and doing this on New Year's Eve, my good friend.
Brother, it's actually a pleasure to be here. You know, what's funny is sometimes our podcasts turn out good, but I think our phone calls turn out great.
I appreciate that. I agree.
You know, it's those off the cuff moments that are usually the best. Um, and just for clarity, when you said the first or last, it I want to make sure everybody understood what you said. You didn't say the first or last. You said the first or last. And it doesn't mean that necessarily they are last in the action of doing things or they are last in performance, but I think it means that they are last following through till the end. That means giving 100+%. You know, a lot of people give up at the very last end of anything. Pushing through is what the winners actually do. And that's what we're doing here today. It's New Year's Eve going into the very end of the year, 365 days, 24/7. There's a lot of hours and minutes in that. There's only a few left. And we're exercising our very last few minutes for the benefit of others. And also, it's not even just the benefit of others, it's the sharpening of our sword as well. Because when we stop doing, we get dull.
When we stop doing, we get dull. What are some things that you see people do that they're becoming dull, but not even recognizing it? Business owner, you interact with so many business owners in so many different capacities. What are some things that people do, yeah, to become dull without
Well, just
recognizing
think about this. Let's give a really solid visual. So, um, everybody has been in, or most people have been in decent shape at one point or another in their life. And if you look back, usually it was when you're younger. As you get older, as you become more successful, sometimes just more busy or busier, uh, you get a little slower, you get a little fatter, you get a little more stressed, you get, things build up on you. And I think a lot of times, if we are not continually doing the work, not only working, but doing the work, the work means working on ourselves. So something like this right here is a doing the work and working on ourselves all at the same time. Because quite frankly, I got a lot going on. For me, I consider this is a bonus day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 3 days. Do I work at the office? Do I get ahead? Do I spend time with you? Do I spend time with your audience? Do I work on the entire, paver driveway system that was just ripped out and make sure that my contractors have a better plan going forward because we know they're not thinking about it. So it's just, one of those things where you got to figure out, like, are you going to make it a lifestyle of continually carving off the fat?
Mm.
Does your little edge stay sharp? See this little pin right here?
Yeah.
Does it stay sharp, right? Because when it's sharp, things are easy. It writes better, the blade cuts better. When you allow yourself to get dull, everything becomes a little more challenging, and that actually compounds on itself. Um, and one thing I've realized over the last year is uh, success isn't more stuff. Success is actually being able to do more, not have more.
What do you mean?
Well, very easily. When you have more, it owns you. When you have less, you're able to do more. So think about this.
Mm.
Uh, you know, for me, this is a good example. I like my environment very well dialed in and tuned so that I can get things done, so that I can feel comfortable, so that I can also create a safe environment for my family. So I do enjoy organization. I enjoy quality and nice things, and it doesn't always mean fancy. It just means um, quality, security, nice things. But that creates a responsibility continuously on the daily, weekly, monthly basis. And sometimes, I think if I didn't have that and I was just in a condo and I was just, moving at the speed of light because I have no other responsibility other than to do and perform, you know, sometimes less is actually giving you the ability to do more.
The absence of resources creates resourcefulness.
Well, the absence of responsibility to things, right?
Okay. Another way to
Yeah,
look
the
at
absence of responsibility to things give you the option to do more with your time because think about this, are you moving forward or are you maintaining?
it.
Maintenance is an issue.
Is there
Movement is positive.
so say that again?
Maintenance is an issue. Movement is positive
Why?
because when you're moving, especially if you're moving forward, if you're moving forward, that's positive. You're always doing. Think about this. You have a plane, it's in the sky. The engines are burning. It is it is using air, right, to stay in the sky. But if it cut them off for a split second, it's still going to stay moving forward. There's a benefit to that.
Mm.
But the plane on the ground under maintenance mode is very costly. Like maintaining things, maintaining the house, maintaining the business, maintaining the people. There is an aspect of weight with maintenance. That's why you see some of these boutique businesses that are so profitable because there's less maintenance and more forward momentum.
Mm. The listener right now that feels as though they don't have enough. They don't have
Actually, they're
enough.
they're more invincible than anyone else. They have
Why?
nothing to lose. They only have everything to gain. There's a weight. There's a responsibility. I mean, just think about crypto. Everybody's like, yeah, let's go out and buy a bunch of crypto. Hey, I'm all for it too. But once you get it, do you know what to do with it? Is it sitting on an exchange or did you put it on your hard wallet? Oh, did you find out that it actually doesn't go on the one that you bought because it's not compliant for that one? So you got to go get another one. So, you start realizing, yeah, you acquired it, then, but what do you do with it to protect it? And then is it really protected? And then actually, did you protect it not only from others, but did you protect it from yourself? because did you not store your keys in a secure area in the right way? Then you forgot them. Now you screwed yourself.
Holy cow. Hmm.
Gets
What
weird.
what were you afraid of in the beginning of 23 that you no longer are?
I mean, in my world, I think coming from where I came from, uh, I just never want to go back there. You know, I don't want to go back to a place where you're starting from zero, because there's a luxury to that because you have nothing to lose, but there's also it's also very tough. So or anyone listening that's like starting from zero, you gotta, you gotta put in the work. You gotta have a plan. You need to find a mentor. You gotta be part of a good group or syndicate of others that are winning. And then initially you've got to win them over so they have an interest in you. So part of it really, at the end of the day, people invest in you. They either like you and they want you to be around. You bring value in some sort, but zero is an interesting place. Actually, what's really funny is some people have mismanaged their maintenance responsibility to such a degree they are sub-zero and they're just trying to get back to zero to actually feel like winning, which is a completely whole other dynamic. So those at zero really are in a peculiar position because it could be worse. But I think
Wow.
zero is different for everybody. Think about this: if you're at zero and you have no experience, well, that's a very uh, interesting spot to be because you're not really empowered with what to do next. Being at zero and having an enormous amount of experience actually feels like a fresh start. So it's it's uh, it's all relative to who you are and what you've done, and that's why I say forward momentum is so valuable, because forward momentum with the lack of maintenance responsibility and weight gives you experience faster than your competition or just those around you, which, regardless of however many times you find yourself back at zero, you're still in a very good position.
How did you make it through the first 3 years of your business? Because what you've created is a unique and takes a certain type
Well,
of.
yeah, I mean, like I, you don't all. It's not about you came up with a great idea. Everything's already been done before. The gentleman that recommended to me that I do what he's doing, it I had a great business and a great network, but it was very laborious. I mean, it was very draining. It was very cumbersome, technical. You had to be extremely proficient with technology, with programmers, with designers, with the ability to deliver a product online that they love but they've never seen before. So you almost had to read their mind and make sure that when you delivered it, there was a wow factor where they were like, okay, cool. We have a 5-step process, which was define, design, develop, deliver, deploy. So, every one of those had a stopgap phase where we would not go backwards without a definition of scope creep that gave us a little bit of a, okay, hey, you changed the game. But at the end of the line, like, you had a project that had to be handed to somebody else that was, they were happy with, right? Um, that was a lot of work, but we had a lot of customers over the years, and the gentleman that was a customer that ran a community for investors in the real estate space was really impressed with our ability to deliver and communicate, and just recommended. He said, look, you should be doing what I have done in the real estate space, but in the entrepreneur space. So um,
Wow.
it wasn't that I actually wasn't totally bought in on the idea, just because I feel like there's a lot of individuals out there that are selling, they have superior marketing and inferior fulfillment. on, in the event space,
Hmm.
coaching, training, author, speaker, so that whole arena is full of, it's like the crypto arena, there's so many thousands of them, and only a few really make it, right? Um, it just felt like one of those scenarios where, do I really want to be in that space? But then when you think about it, if you're real and you deliver a product or an experience, and even if you deliver something that delivers, then it's pretty easy to stand out.
What does it take to deliver in your mind? What values?
Well, I think if you say, okay, if you are now working with entrepreneurs and you obviously are an entrepreneur at heart, it's pretty easy to just say, what do I not want? You know, I don't want uh, to sit at
Huh.
potentially a table of people who are lying. I don't want to sit at a table where people are posturing. I don't want to sit at a table where I can't trust the person from across the table. I don't, I actually really don't want to waste a lot of time if it's not wildly valuable. So I just thought through the process of what would I not want, which helps define what I would want. And then, the biggest factor in my world is time. Like, I have so many things that I want to do. I have so many things that I am doing. And then I have so many other things that I want to do, that when I look at, if I become my own ideal avatar, my entire competition is not for their wallet, it's for their time, it's for their calendar. It's it's being able to meet them in their headspace faster than anyone else. And then they come to the guided conclusion that, holy cow, this guy gets it and he gets me. Matter of fact, how do I get him on my team? You know? And then, well, it's not about putting him on my team, it's about putting their community on my team, because he's leading it and all of them. And then it becomes less about me and more about, the entire offering of the brand, the community, the team, the technology, than myself.
Brilliant.
Because anytime you're posturing yourself as the solution, a real pro says, okay, so where's the break point? Because you're one person, you're one thing, you're one entity. Like that, I can't build anything substantial off of that. So show me something bigger. I don't know. Does this make any sense?
The relationship that you cultivate with the member is a mentee mentor relationship to one degree.
Well, it's trust initially. First, you have to earn their respect. You have to understand them. As soon as you're able to understand them, you have to think about this part of it, right? Think about a husband and a spouse. I mean, a husband and a wife, a spousal relationship. The number one challenge is not, are you attracted? Many people come together because they are attracted. That's usually the easy part. That's the part that happens by default. The real challenge is, do you understand each other? Because once there's true understanding, what does that person desire? Where does that person want to go? What does that person actually respect? What does that person potentially not want any part of? The understanding, and it's understanding and being understood mutually, where then you really have a quality situation. The same thing is in a business deal. A business uh, relationship, right? There needs to be that exact same thing. Not only being understood, but also being able to understand. And that's where, that intersection, or really that tongue and groove aspect, begins to interlock, where you stand out to the other party, because the number one thing you find at that high performer level is like they have created many times such performance in their world or potentially success, sometimes luck, hard work, timing, a lot of things factor in. But regardless of how they got there, their capability to get things done becomes so misunderstood. Like most people, even I have a good friend, he showed up yesterday and he was standing in the driveway. I've known him for a long time, and he does what is it called, like spray bed liners, the bed liner stuff that goes in this uh, pickup trucks and stuff. And he did one of my vehicles. They did the outside of it on a we call it the mobile command unit. It's a Sprinter,
Mm.
very apocalyptic looking Sprinter, and they did a great
Wow.
custom job. Every once in a while, he stops by. It's a holiday weekend, but he's just like how are you doing what you're doing? And in my world, I don't know. It's just work. Like I just go to work. I just think. I just push. But there is a, there is a level of performance where you get to, and others are thinking, how the hell are they doing that? And then when you're moving fast, just like yourself or your peers, I mean, you understand this. For you, it's not difficult. It's just what you do. For many times, those around you, they're thinking, how are they doing it, right?
Mm.
Um, but
Absolutely.
but but to have to have the connection where you sit down with the general, at the general dinner or the general phone call, Zoom, whatever the interface is, and somebody go, oh yeah, totally, I get it, 100%. I've been there, I've done that, you know, and there's almost this uh, not even a mind reading, but an absolute rapport installation of when, let's say, for example, pick a business, any business,
Software. Software as a
software. Okay, cool.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
software
software
as
is
a
a tough
service.
business because you're under constant. So think about this: you're a software owner, right? Or a software platform owner, founder, CEO. By the way, owner, founder, CEO, those are three different things. They're not the same thing. Many
Yeah.
times it starts out as the same, but a founder wants to become an owner, and the only way they can do that is many times by hiring a CEO. But the biggest problem is a founder can never get out of his own way, gets trapped in the CEO role, and is the owner at the same time, and really never becomes a full-blooded owner, right? So, uh, back to
Very,
the software. Back to the software guy, though.
we
So
have to
let's say the
unpack that
soft,
too. That's a very important point. After
yeah,
we,
sure, yeah. So, but back to the software guy, though. The software guy, you know, or girl or individual that has started a software company. Well, let me ask you this: are they the owner, the founder, or are they the CEO?
let's say founder.
Perfect. So, because that's what the first step is. The founder is the one that came up with the idea. They're also the one that has gone through the most pain. Many times have bootstrapped it. Even if they didn't bootstrap it and they raised capital, they now feel responsible to their investor. They carry the emotional weight. They carry more pain than any other party. It was their idea, whether people invested or not. They definitely are invested, and there is a responsibility to win and a absolute fear of failure in general for the most part. Where if I'm sitting at say, let's call it a dinner, we're on a call with somebody in a software founder situation, I can absolutely understand that they are under constant pressure to create uh, more customers on the platform, but also be what is the sexiest thing in the industry, but also price is crunching down on them because tech continually loses value in the same marketplace because everything is free. It gains value in the multiple. It's a very weird and tricky business model because it gets a lot of multiples on an exit while it is not potentially earning lots of revenue. But if it's not earning revenue, it's got to be creating adoption. So what is the strategy and how are they funding it? There's a fine line there from a software company standpoint of going out of business. Because if they're not funding it well or they're not creating revenue well, how do they pay their team, their employees? How do they acquire new customers? So that's a really tricky business nowadays. It was less so before, but now you got to be a real player with AI entering the space. If you're not incorporating AI, leveraging AI, not only for development, but giving your user the capability to layer AI into the feature set so that it affects their end result with their business, especially if it's a B2B software, you're basically you're out of the game at this point. So software is, and think about this, software is also a 24-hour a day business because software is global. Your programmers are global. If you're not just playing with people in your time zone, you are against the world. You are on the world stage. It's like the Olympics of business that everyone shows up 24/7, 365. And, this guy sitting across this girl, guy, person sitting across the table, talking about being a founder of a software company, you know, listen, brother, I'm buying tonight because I know that is that's a big, that's a big seat that you sit in, and I want to hear your story. And a lot of times that's probably the best place to start. Like just let them tell you about how did they get there, where
Mm.
are they? And they could be in a really good position too. Maybe they found, and here's the ironic part, sometimes you find a nuance of business that no one is catering to, but also you have the responsibility to take that one mechanism or module and build something comprehensive out of it. Because if you only do one little thing, many times the Walmart of the software business in your realm, the sales force can come along and say, you know what, that's pretty good. They buy access to what you have, they knock it off, they put it right into their platform, and no one's paying any extra for. They just buy Salesforce and they get exactly what you have
Mm.
and everything else. So you could wake up tomorrow and be out of business. So talk to me, tell me your story. Where are you going with this?
CEO, how do you view that position?
Well, the CEO really is the ticket to freedom for the founder, because if you can get someone that really is not an entrepreneur and is truly an executionary from a CEO perspective that wants to be part of what you created, because so think of this. A CEO is like, Danica Patrick,
No.
race car driver.
Okay.
She's like one of the world's greatest female IndyCar race car drivers, right? I
Okay.
think she drove some NASCAR too, though. But she's a girl. She goes, I don't even know about cars. I don't even care about cars. She goes, I drive them. I don't. I don't care about the engine. I don't care about the tires. I am not a car person. You can go look it up. She's the world's greatest female driver. She doesn't care about the car because she drives
Wow.
cars, right? So when you find a CEO that drives business and doesn't care about what you, in a sense, or how you created it, but now you're giving them the IndyCar and they are there to drive it and win. Now you've got a CEO and now you're an owner.
Mm. What's the owner?
Well, an
What does
owner
that mean?
now moves from employee technically, because a founder who is a CEO is really an employee of their business. Now, when you have an owner, you own the business and you transfer from having potentially what could be considered as a liability while it's an asset because you are, as if you are the founder CEO, you're still the owner as well. You know, you're kind of in a liability uh, asset relationship with the entity, but moving from founder by hiring a CEO brings you into true ownership. Now this business is an asset. And really what you begin to start thinking about is not how do I grow? You begin to think about how do I scale? And do I scale organically or do I scale through acquisition? Because you can scale organically consistently over a period of time and you can do really well. Think about it. I mean, let's just say you grow organically 100% a year. That means you double every year. You still can't compete with growing through acquisition because I can acquire somebody tomorrow that quadruples me in a month. You find an acquisition that brings twice, three, four times what you're doing for many reasons, right? Maybe they ran the business into the ground financially. Maybe the founder passed away and the wife has no idea what to do with it, and there's not really a great executive team, so she wants to just before it becomes worth less every month, she wants to get what she can for it, right? I mean, there's so many things that transpire that give you the opportunity as an owner to go out and grow through acquisition, which is scale. Growth and scale, I see, are two different things. But scale is growth.
What's someone's listening to this in 2024 on New Year's Eve? Who is Mike Calhoun on that day?
What day? The day in the future?
Yep, 2024, New Year's Eve, 1 year from
Oh, you
now.
mean 1 year from now?
Someone's listening to this exact episode, what you're saying. Who are you then?
Well, I mean, honestly, like I should be listening to this 1 year from now. Sometimes, I call it self-coach because here's a really ironic thing about life. We so many times go out to try to get something from somewhere else that we already know, but it's just because we need confirmation. Sometimes there's not enough uh, of our own confirmation. We're not giving ourselves enough confirmation. It does actually feel really good. Let's just say, for example, I said, "Hey, Jay, I got an idea, or we're going to make a shift," and you go, "Oh man, that's perfect. You should have done that a year ago." Well, I already knew I should have done that a year ago, but just the fact that you retorted with a really confident, "Hey, you should have done that a year ago," just re solidifies my decision to shift that gear, right? So many times our own self coach already knows what to do. And with your remarkable pad here, right? Getting it out.
Yes.
And sometimes, look at this. Look at this. So, and this is new for me in the sense of these
For those that
these
can't see, Mike is holding the Remarkable 2, a technology.
So look here. I'm going to pull up
Which I recommend
exactly what.
buying for all the
Well,
listeners.
I'm pulling something up that I wrote out the other day, right? So this is what we just talked about, right? Let's see here.
Yeah, it looks great. Hold it a little higher.
So you have, what do you have? The owner, you have the founder, you have the CEO.
Yeah,
Plus, what we also deal with is the investor, the advisor, and the provider.
love it.
Well,
Well
all
written.
six of those become decision makers, right? In our world.
Yeah.
So for us, this is our ideal demographic.
Yeah, I mean
Now, when
I
you
fit right
break
there.
down the owner, they can be owner of businesses, brands, assets, right? And audiences. Make sense?
Yes.
or
Absolutely.
then you become a buyer, right? So once you become the owner, you also become a buyer of these, which makes you again refortifying you as the owner, or at least having equity in, right?
It's a brilliant way to articulate it because when one is in a position of ownership, as you speak, they're selling just like the one-time founder did with their relationships and bringing their resources based on their paradigm and explaining their reasons. However, who the they're selling to is they're getting capital.
Well, I mean,
They're
all I'm really trying to articulate here is sometimes the reason that we write these things down is for others, many times for others, sometimes for ourselves. This here is for my team, but it's also for myself. And every time I
Hmm.
read it, it re-solidifies where my concentration of effort and actions need to be. So when you say who needs to listen this, who needs to listen this to this a year from now, I would say, well, again, I do, because there is so much noise in the daily routine and in the world that a carefully crafted thought with decisiveness and then scribed down, whether it be on a notepad on your remarkable whatever, even on a podcast like this, going back to it because it was well thought out, well scribed. It's a direction, or it's a directive and a reminder for yourself of, think of it as rails. You concentrate all of your experience, thought, energy into a few words on a piece of paper or a digital screen here, and those, in a sense, become rails for your business, for yourself. So I say, maybe I need to listen to this a year from now.
I just realized
It'd be cool
I
though, is if I could listen to this with those who are also listening to this, a year from now, and then we have like a listen to this party.
that idea is so in alignment with the spirit of this New Year's Eve recording idea
Right.
because I'm thinking every year, why would I not record episodes with the people in my life that I care to spend a Sunday with or whatever it falls on a day with the New Year's Eve, and then be able to look at them later, in the future on this day. I love that idea. I think that's exactly the case. Because what
Well,
better accountability?
I received something this morning from somebody's list that I didn't even actually opt into, but they put me on it anyway. And it was asking the question of, like, January 1, 2023, what were your income goals, or what were your goals? Just, obviously they're selling, making money. So just say, what were your X goals? What were your family goals? What were your financial goals? What were your freedom goals? What were your fitness goals? Uh, you know, insert preferred word, and then are you there? Because that kind of makes you feel pretty good about your discipline for the prior year, or makes you feel pretty. It's kind of a reality check to your discipline for the prior year. And I mean, at the end of the day, who wants to lose a year? I mean, what's a year worth? Kind of a lot,
Hmm.
right?
What did you learn about um the best like what did you learn this year in 2023?
Uh, learned a lot. I learned that I learned a lot. I can give you something from several categories if you want to pick categories. Like, let's pick your top 3 to 5 categories.
Well, yeah, your entrepreneurial journey, your spirituality, and your manhood. Those are the three I'd want to know.
Okay, so for the entrepreneurial journey, one of the largest things that I learned, well, I would say not the largest, one of the most important things that I learned is I'm a huge advocate of speed, but you have to slow down in order to go faster. And as a visionary CEO, somebody, a lot of times when you're able to do a lot of things or you're able to come up with a lot of great ideas, you get diluted. And in order to really feel fulfilled, it's great to come up with them, but it's better to inventory them before actioning them so that you can say, hey, how does my core business function? And then this idea I had, is that an idea that I shelf until potentially later so that I have options for the future? Or is it an idea that makes my business better? And if it is an idea that makes my business better, is it one that I do, this week, this month, this quarter, this year? You know, understanding how feedback factors in ideas, innovation, and enhancements factor into the business and the sense of timing, because that's when people says timing is everything. It's actually true. Timing is everything. So, all of these things coming at you have to be factored into, do they go on the shelf as an option? Do they get implemented? If they do get implemented, when do they get implemented? And then who actually does it? Because I'm guilty as anybody else of just saying, hey, great idea. Boom, let's get that thing on the map. I pop it onto somebody's plate and they don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, much less, in my head, it's perfectly clear. In their head, it's as clear as mud.
Hmm. What are your thoughts on impulse control, the relevancy uh, of that as it relates to founder?
Well, okay. So,
Is it relevant? Is it not relevant?
well, I think impulse control is uh, impulsiveness. And my wife actually is a great feedback loop for this because she's always like, don't be so impulsive. And I'm like, impulsive? What are you talking about? I get shit done. This is me getting shit done. What are you, like, impulsive? You don't even get it, you know. But she's actually right. you know, Anytime you choose to do another thing, you're choosing to focus on the thing that potentially is what's creating your existing lifestyle or your existing security. So, that impulsiveness is sometimes it is a leak in your bucket, and it can become a drug like hopium, especially if something in your bucket is going wrong and you just keep trying other things because you're addicted to potentially the hope of this next big thing, when really nothing is actually getting done, right? So impulsivity, um, I don't think it's actually a good thing. Initially, I saw it as a fast action, quick start, somebody that can, you know, take that idea and, run with it like a football field, football down the football field. But realistically, in my hindsight, I wouldn't categorize it as a positive. I would categorize it as a negative and potentially a Trojan horse to success.
Hmm. What role
But we
does
got to get back to your
intuition?
categories
Yeah, this
because
is
I don't
still
want.
on entrepreneur though. This is the master
Sure,
class.
sure.
The master class. The what role does intuition play in the founder?
Well, I think intuition comes from instinct and experience. Uh, Instinct, people are built different ways, and not one way is right always. That's why diversity is great because it kind of covers the 360 degrees, all angles, right? But intuition, I see as a culmination of your natural instinct, training, experience, right? Like certain people have talent, but you actually don't get to see talent until you're at the top, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1% of the game. A lot of people can go out and play pickup ball on the basketball court, but real talent is only demonstrated through that all-star team, that NBA experience, that NBA environment where you see Michael Jordan do what others can only dream of doing. That's talent. In the business world, I see kind of talent and instinct being very similar in the sense of being able to perform, right? So if you kind of say or if you were to create an equation of instinct or talent with training, because you can imagine things a million times in your head, but if your body has never stepped through it, or if you've never built a routine around it, or it's one thing to have it in your mind, but it's also one thing to execute physically, mentally together on it. Training prepares you for going into the real world and developing experience. So intuition comes from all of that. I think every once in a while you get a feeling about something, but a feeling about something is kind of the genesis of intuition. When you are able to conjure instinct or talent, training, experience, all for a decision making or a decision that has to be made relevant to something, and somebody goes, "Oh my gosh, his intuition is great," or maybe it sucks, right? Like one or the other. You know, the intuition is something that I think you are able to benefit from because of all of that. Right? I don't think anybody comes out of the womb going, "Oh my gosh, I have great intuition." Um, some maybe than others, but does it really come down to that natural instinct?
Your big lesson or realization of, as it relates spiritually in 2023.
Well, the real fact of the matter is everybody's going to die, right? So let's ask yourself this question. And a lot of people tell themselves, there's nothing on the other side, or I'm going to get another chance because I'm going to be reincarnated. Um, back to if you carry what we just talked about, instinct, training, and experience, if you carry those over into the conversation with spirituality, right? When's the last time you actually did any research? First off, let's start with instinct. Well, instinctively, where where do you think you came from? Where do you think you're going? Really, right? Like you don't have to answer me. You have to answer you. So
Hmm.
without lying to yourself, without telling yourself a story to make yourself feel okay about all the stupid shit you're doing, how about you actually answer that? Where do you think you came from? Where do you think we came from? And where do you think you're actually going? And Maybe you have a good answer. Maybe you don't even have an answer. Maybe you have a big question mark. Maybe you told yourself a big story that you feel great about. Who knows? Um, but if you really start to dig into it, what you start to find out is there are answers, right? Um, and if you start to, I wouldn't even say train yourself. Training is something that's more in the business realm, learning a skill set, learning self defense, the art of self defense, the art of business, the art of war, right? Like these are trainings. Uh, but if you begin to actually research and dig in and study, right? Like the Bible says, study to show thyself approved. Seek and you will find. There's an aspect of seeking the truth. Now, there's also the deception of those who are constantly seeking. Many times, that constantly seeking environment is to satisfy, to be like, hey, look at me. I'm always in the pursuit of finding the truth. Well, it just means you haven't found it yet, right? You're always seeking. You have not found it. And the funny part about it is right there in front of you. Sometimes individuals like to dance around it to show how diligently they are looking for the truth because they want to be rewarded for their actions and not their faith. If you get down to it, it's right in front of you. It's been there all the time. Um, so so instinctively, I think everyone knows where they came from. Instinctively, I think everyone knows where they're going. And I think instinctively, uh, they know the right questions to ask themselves. I think, though, there is a lot of perversion and it is a challenge many times to get to what is real. Uh, you know, let's just say, okay, well, I want to go to maybe I want to get my spiritual life in order and I want to go to church. Okay, well, so go to church, sit down. Maybe we say, I mean, what is the number one church? What is the number one religion? Catholicism or whatever, right? So, okay, I'm going to be a Catholic. I'm going to go to a Catholic church. I look it up. I go Google a Catholic church. I sit down, and it's like all all the stuff seems to be the same thing over and over and over. So instinctively, I start thinking, well, that doesn't feel genuine. That doesn't feel like a relationship with a creator. That doesn't, for some reason, that seems like some sort of a routine or some sort of a script. Like I keep reading a movie script, but you know, where is this going? Is that we do this again next Sunday and we do it the next Sunday and we do it, am I, it's like a chant, right? Am I chanting and waiting? So I think instinctively, even once you start taking action, you will begin to notice that some of it feels right and some of it doesn't.
Hmm.
And, getting into your own. So think about this. Say you go to a Catholic church, and I'm not making fun of Catholics. I'm just saying you will begin to determine on your own what feels right and what feels wrong for you. But if you pair that with studying to show thyself approved, then you're arming yourself with information because it's real difficult. It's real easy, actually, to listen to someone tell you something and then say, oh, I guess that's the thing. But then when you study yourself and you hear someone say something and you go, well, that doesn't jive with what I read. That's interesting. So now not only does it not feel correct or weird or odd, then it doesn't actually match with what I read. So something here is not right. So I think part of the spirituality side of things is, you know, being in tune with instinctively what you feel is right, study to get some rails, some training, if you will, some information, and then there's this aspect of experience. You got to go out and you got to get some exposure and you got to have some conversations. And there's an aspect of um, putting it to work and testing it. Like, think about this. What if I said, hey, here's what I believe, Jay. What do you believe? And you say, well, I believe this. And I say, well, in my world, I'm having a hard time even seeing what you. And then now we're having this dialogue, and actually, the scripture promotes that
Hmm.
because there is a carving of, and it's just like what we do, right? With the mastermind, there's a carving of each other back and forth, which is making you better, making them better, bringing clarity, and then many times that dialogue or debate, it's called a healthy debate, ends up saying, well, why don't we actually look it up? So if 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 you give me a word and I say, well, that's not the definition, you say, well, that is the definition. I say, well, that's not the definition. You say, well, that is. Well, I say, well, let's go look at the dictionary. And then we look it up and we realize, I was half right, you were half right. But now we actually really get what the definition is. Well, then you say, hey, but you used your dictionary and I used my dictionary. So then it goes, well, which dictionary is correct right now? But now we're actually getting somewhere because we've gotten from what's in our head
Yeah.
to what's between us to what is written to now, well, where is the variant of that written to? Okay, so where's the source of that? You just keep following it to where you get to what is real. And what's interesting is if you track that stuff back from a spirituality standpoint, which I wouldn't even call it spirit, I would call it a truth aspect, right? What is the truth? There's only one real truth, right? It's either the truth or it's not the truth. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of facts out there and there is a lot of history out there, but you go all the way back down to the beginning. It's stuff started somewhere, right? You're going to get at a certain point, you're going to go as far as you can go or as you're comfortable with until you're like, you know what, I'm decided. And I think that's for me this year, and I can get very specific with you if you want to, but for me this year, understanding the difference between Christianity and a blood-based Christianity, where I mean, going all, and I'll make it really quick. Do we have time? I don't even know. You just ask me questions, so I just answer.
Yeah, please finish your thought.
Yeah. So if you go all the way back to, let's call it creation, right? And when you read the word in the beginning, Genesis, in the beginning, God created all these things. God didn't necessarily say when the beginning was. I mean, I don't think he has to explain himself to us. He's the guy, right? He's the creator. So in the beginning, he created all these things. But then what he actually ended up creating was man. And he created man in the image of himself. Or if you actually look at it closer, it's a plural word. Uh, he created himself, or he created man in the image of them or us, meaning there is a Trinity Godhead, meaning God, Christ, Holy Spirit. There is more than one. So when he created man, if you notice, he actually created in man more than one, because women or a woman came out of man, right? He did not create woman. He pulled woman out of man. So man originally was a creation directly in the image of just in a physical presence, if you will, right? So when you look at like the chronological order, man was created, woman is pulled out of man, but also man and woman are still one. Why do you think we get married? And then it says you become one once you are married. Fast forwarding down the timeline, right? So there is this environment in which they live, but there is this relationship where God wants to be respected and honored through their own decision. Because just telling, if you create something and you say, hey, you know, you are going to do X, well, what's the relationship there? Because you want your wife to choose you and respect you and be loyal to you, or your spouse, right? Like, you want that to be their decision, not because you told them. Because you could go, I mean, if you just walked around and you told anybody, okay, you're going to be loyal to me, that would just be a weird scenario. There is no relationship in that manner. So Christ or God wanted that relationship. And if you notice in the word, it actually says he created everything through Christ, which becomes very interesting later, because once they chose not to follow the direction and they ate from the tree and sin came into the world, there was a breaking of the relationship. Now there's a gap, right? So when you look at God's perfect plan, he always gave man, who was created in his image, which is a plurality, right? But one,
Hmm.
a choice to honor that relationship. And every time it was broken in his perfect plan, he makes a way back to a relationship with him. So once sin entered the world, they were kicked out of their environment. You can call it Garden of Eden. Uh, and the only way back was through what was called a blood sacrifice, meaning there only blood, a blood sacrifice. You had to kill a lamb in a certain format in order to receive remission, not complete removal, but remission of those sins. And that when you say sin, it is that distancing from you and your relationship with the Creator, right? And so you go back to the very beginning of the basics of a division in the relationship, and how do you get back? A blood sacrifice was the only way. And if you understand the very first blood sacrifice story, where there was Cain and Abel, and one of them made a blood sacrifice of a lamb, one of them sacrificed a harvesting of farmed goods, and God's like, look, that's not, you know I make the rules. You don't offer me something that you want to offer me. You offer me something that, when I say this is what repairs the relationship and puts us back into connectivity. When you just give me what you want to give me, that doesn't, my rules don't change. My pathway back to me is my pathway, not yours. So, you know, looking all the way back to that very, very basic pathway back to a relationship with the Creator, and then you look at Christ, the Creator, who all things were created through, coming back into the world in flesh format, living the example. But he didn't come to just live the example. See, the sacrifice that's made has to be your best lamb, your perfect lamb, blemish free. Like, even a bull, it's called a red heifer, cannot have one white hair. It has to be that. In the Jewish tradition, it has to be that perfect. So Christ not only came to die for the purpose of shedding his blood, because that's the only thing that can give us permanent pathway back to the Creator. He came to live a perfect life before death, because if he didn't, he is not the perfect sacrifice. So he came originally to die, yes, but he had to live that perfect routine, that perfect example. And he had to die, and it wasn't about dying. It was about the blood, because his blood is the, so what, think about it. Man could never stick to all the laws that God laid out in what's called the Torah. So that's, the first four books of the Bible are it's the illustration of what God considers the perfect way to live, but it's too heavy for man. So when it says in the word, it says Christ came to deliver the Jewish people, which are the example for the earth. They are the ones that he came to save from the law, because the Torah was given to them, the law was given to them, but it's too tough, it's too heavy, it's impossible. So there's no way they could ever live that and reestablish the relationship and the connectivity. So he decided to create another pathway by coming and being his own sacrifice, shedding in human format, shedding his own blood and giving us that perfect pathway back that covers all past, all present, and all future individuals. To where, here's the interesting part. So it's the blood from day one that was prescribed as the only way. And then not only did he come and offer his own blood, he very specifically explains that the only way to meet, you know how it talks about a camel passing through the eye of a needle?
Yep.
Because the only way is by his blood, and the only way through his blood is by faith. You cannot do anything. You can't live the perfect life. You can't give enough money to a charity. You can't, there's nothing you can do, which is why when you look at everybody's heard of the Pharisees, because the Pharisees would go around doing all the right things and they would demonstrate how good they were so that they could get the accolades. And that is the opposite. There's nothing there's, if he already did everything and your only job is to believe and have faith in that blood, what is it you're going to do that's better than that? Right? So when you say spirituality, that was a big knot that I was able to tie this year with thorough understanding and complete conviction that from the creation and the creator and his grace always finding a way to give us a path back to him for the relationship. Why would you go somewhere? Why would you go uh, somewhere where there is no relationship, where everything is scripted and routine and absolutely numb? And the fact that regardless of what you've done or what you think you are doing, none of that matters. Your only job is to have faith in that one thing. Now, I mean, just who knows who's listening to this? I might have just pissed everybody off. But at the end of the day, it really actually doesn't matter whether I pissed everybody off or not. It's the fact that they actually had a chance to hear it with clarity, because I don't think a lot of people are talking about the real truth, getting down to the nitty gritty. I mean, we can talk about business all day if you like.
What did you learn about? I think you've already answered my third question, but I'd like to know. Okay, do you feel like you did? Because the third category was 2023 in your manhood, which is made like your individuality or your, you know, my feeling is that you already answered it, but maybe you have a different view of that.
Well, I've been a very um, physically oriented person growing up. Uh, since just being a young man, being a person. I always was very fascinated with uh, the physical aspect of things, right? Um, Things that I appreciated quality and beauty, and think about a beautiful house or beautiful girl or cool car, or it wasn't even that. I think I just liked the aspect of creation. In understand, creating something awesome is pretty cool. Look, architects, create bridges and buildings, and software engineers create, Bitcoin, and there's just an amazing um, appreciation that I think I have for individuals that are creators, developers, and early on, when you don't have any money and you don't really have any experience, the only thing you can work on is yourself, right? So early on, I was very from a male aspect, you know, go to the gym, work out, work. How can I create the best version of myself, even though there's not really a lot of resources? You can still do 1,000 push-ups in a week. You can still go to the gym. You can still, even if you bought $1,000 vehicle. My first car was $350, but it was the shiniest car in the town. Nobody had a shinier car, but it was $350. But there's an aspect of, regardless of what you have, present it well. And I think as a man, I've always tried to present myself well, present whatever it is that I had well. And I think this year, what I learned was, as a man, it's not necessarily about really how everything looks, substance. It's about all of it. On the surface, it can look away, but if there is no substance, it will fail, right? And that goes down to business. It goes down to family. That goes down to finance. What things look like are usually the opposite of what they actually are, right? So what if it looked like something amazing and it was actually amazing? Now that's pretty
Hmm.
rare, right? So my realization, I think, in the manhood side of things is, well, if you physically look amazing, are you really as healthy as you look? If you financially look amazing, are you really as financially capable as you look? And beginning to pair, humble the outside and nurture and fortify the inside, I think is a much wiser approach to, as a man, really life in general. Don't over posture your finance, don't over posture, even realistically, over posturing your physical capability isn't that attractive. But I mean, even the family side of things, you see all these people like, oh my gosh, my wife and I have this amazing marriage, and a year later, they're divorced. The fact is no marriage is easy. No family life is easy. I prided myself for years in being an unbelievable provider and protector, but there's major gaps that leaves, right? There's major voids that leaves, that time has escaped, and to go back and to satisfy those voids is sometimes impossible. So I think you got to ask yourself the question, um, whatever it looks like on the outside, is it really that on the inside? And if it were, I think that's fulfillment. And that's tough. That's actually really tough, because in order to make it that good on the inside, or intrinsically, you're going to have to humble the outside, what everybody sees. So you might not be fascinated with positioning yourself where everybody is like, hey, you're doing great, or you look great, or whatever, right? A lot of people don't even they don't care about that, but a lot of people do. I mean, if you look at social media, it's pretty much what everybody is focused on, you know. What does it look like? And that causes a lot of harm too, because everybody's trying to be what they think others are, when really others aren't even that. They were that for a moment in time, while it puts the stress on others to be that permanently because somebody was that for a split second.
If you had a, your last breath is right now, what you want the audience to hear?
Well, that's a, if and everybody wants to say, when asked like a question, everybody wants to say something profound. Uh, I think what I would say is stop. Just stop. Just cut the shit out. Look around. Like, are you really doing what you think you should be doing? Because going back to instinct, you already know that self coach. You know where you know whether you're doing what you should be doing or not. And if you are doing what you should be doing, you don't even care what anyone thinks because you're in your groove. You're in your space that you were meant to be in. But if you're not, and I tell you stop, look around and just dial in to that self coach, that internal voice, that instinct. I don't even have to tell you, you're already telling you.